Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. So today's video we are going to be doing a chit chat about all kinds of plug and play, or actually like plug and play, I mean handheld ways to play Sega Genesis games. And it's interesting where we have all kinds of emulation, original cartridge support or license runs from the old famous ad games. There are a lot of cool ways to play, so let's do a quick overview. I already said it, like there are a lot of licensed products, not everything comes from China. But when you're going to be looking at some of these devices, some of them have like some really cool stuff to it when it comes to HDMI output, an IPS panel, you name it, or something retro. Like this is kind of funny, this is actually like retro, this is really old. But it's another way to play cartridges. And so doing a little bit of an overview of a couple of them. We're going to be also checking out what kind of different versions we're having. And I mean particularly when it comes to playing Sega games, because not everything plays original cartridges. Some of them are emulation, like this particular one over here, the Eminic. And the reason for me, this is actually in Sega Genesis portable. This is what the Sega Nomad 2.0 would be if Sega did in collaboration with Embernic. And in here we're having the 60-bit Pocket MD and many other ones. But what kind of versions do we actually have? There are three types of different devices. So the first one, emulation. It's easy, it's basic, it can play even more than the Sega Genesis. We can play Master System, Game Gear, we can even play Dreamcast, you name it. This is an absolutely crazy device. But if you're getting back to something else like the licensed stuff, we're having over here the Mega Drive Arcade Ultimate Portable. That was a very interesting piece of equipment. I did a full video with it, so we're going to be doing a quick overview of that too. But also we're going to be checking out, like we're having this other, you can see like similarities, and then of course the white edition. There was, I think this is the last released version. There was even some custom firmware from the community. It was kind of cool. So we have the option not only to add games, but get overall better emulation performance, to the point it's, so far I understand, perfect. So this is actually one of the many ways to play. All right. Audio out for your jack for the headphone, and TV out is here, charging up. And the volume. Alright, let's power it on. It's games. Alright, let's crank up the volume. Zoom in a little bit, let's see what is on this system. Alright, there are some good games on it already. Alex Kidd, Alien Storm, Alternate Beast, Aero Flash, Decap. Also quite some awesome games on it. But yeah, there are not many games. It got the option to add new games through the SD at the top of the system, so that's pretty damn awesome. Shall we play some games? I am going to shut up now and use the microphone on the system so you can hear how good is the quality of the audio. Oh man, he hit me right in the face. No, not again. Me, Macho Man. Welcome to your doom. Oh, that's so weird sound. Ah, crap. they have released a lot of different devices when it comes to, let's say, the Sega franchise, and we've reviewed a lot of them here on the channel. And consider subscribing, because I have reviewed and I'm going to be testing out a lot of them. However, when you're going to be looking at it, this thing comes with a lot of packed up very cool games. So having Sonic the Hedgehog, and having Alex Kidd, some Beefcake Turn in a Movie, Alien Storm, you know, Columns, Crackdown, Golden Axe. Man, this thing is filled with all kinds of retro goodies. However, so let's do a quick overview of the device. I personally really love this cardboard box. You don't see that often. Sometimes they have like blister packaging or no packaging at all, because people throw out stuff. However, you can see the manual is not the toilet paper manual that we've seen before with the, let's say, products from China. So this is a very nice, let's say, overall good explained manual with all kinds of stuff like warnings and even some overview how you need to play certain games. Our flash, crackdown, so columns, decap attack. You know, it's kind of interesting what kind of games you can actually find. So Game Grounds is one we have seen in those plug and play devices. And of course Sonic 1 and 2. Personally, not the biggest fan of 2 somehow. I'm more like a fan of Sonic 1 and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Sonic Spinball, it's okay. I enjoyed myself back in the day, but it's not my favorite one when it comes to that. So the device does have an interesting configuration. So when it comes to the SIG button over here, you can see that this thing has some scratches. So yeah, that is one of the things that is unfortunate happening a lot. So we do have the option for an SD card. And we have an input for the USB Mini, because these things are already quite old. Volume control, AV out. The D-pad itself, where it is not like, say, the most comfortable D-pad, it does have like a very nice feel. Over here having the on and off switch, and then the audio jack. And yeah, there is not like really a lot of cool stuff you can do with like HDMI and stuff like that. So it's quite basic. But let's open it up and let's see what we're going to be finding in the inside. I'm hoping there is no batteries, or we need to put them in there. Ooh, yeah, that is one of the things that is a little bit of a downside to these devices, because these battery can get corrupt, or can get, let's say, they can have some problems. Let's put it that way. And I don't know if you can actually find these, the MP60. You know, there are a lot of different batteries out there, but finding them is going to be, yeah, challenging. So I do have this idea. It's a little bit thick, so it's highly possible it doesn't work. So what we're going to be doing is not grabbing the AV cable, but we're going to be plugging this thing straight into a 5V, because that's the stuff we're going to be needing. We're going to be seeing if this thing even charges, and if not, we're just going to be keeping it safe, because we need to be always very careful with these lithium batteries. So there's a piece of plastic that was actually in front of it over here when you bought it brand new, and that's actually it. So let's plug it in. Oh man, I really hate these freaking compartments when it comes to like putting a screw in and out of such like freaking shenanigans. So yeah, how about the charging? You can see some weird things going on with the LED. I think there were like actually two colors. I've been charging for some time now, but let's see if it's going to be even doing anything. No, this thing doesn't hold up a charge anymore. So that is quite unfortunate. We can boot it up with the 5V adapter attached, so that is a good thing. So let's get it a little bit in the menu and let's see what we're getting with this. So one thing I'm really surprised actually by is that when it comes to the display, this thing is not bad at all. I have seen my share of horrible LCD displays from China, but this thing, that's not an IPS panel, that's one thing for sure, but when you're going to be looking into angle, well, so we're just going to be using it like this. However, so what kind of games? Yeah, we already had like an idea. We'll have like a preview on the box itself. So one of the things is the menu works quite well in combination with the very nice feedback of the D-pad. This is actually going to be enjoyable. But let's see how the overall emulation is when it comes to that. Okay, so far so good. So let's see what's going on over here. Yeah. It sounds more like a speaker is broken, but that's not the case. So will sound a little bit slow because they are using, I'm guessing, the old school, let's say, PAL ROMs. But so one of the things I already mentioned before is like the D-pad is very comfortable, particularly when you're going to be using the left or right. So the audio of this is like pretty bad in some parts, but I must say that I find it still enjoyable. So if you can find a device like this for, let's say, a couple of dollars and even complete a box, I think it can be a very fun thing to actually play. But so far, it's so good. Oh, I messed up, that's one thing for sure. pressing the menu button. There was no quick load, quick save. That was not something of a thing that Firecore actually had. So that's quite unfortunate. So it's quite limited when it comes to, let's say, the overall XP experience when it comes to, let's say, adding cheats and doing quick load, quick save. So I've been reviewing all kinds of Sega plug-and-play devices, and so far there are not a lot of them. They're actually like 100% accurate, and we have seen many of them. One with, let's say, the option for add original games. It's absolutely nuts. But beside that, when it comes to, let's say, playing these Sega games, I think if you're looking at back when they were released, it was like a lot of fun revisiting these old games that we played on the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis. But so far so good. Also here you can see that I have no problem playing this game. And there's absolutely another enjoyable experience. So let's continue. There is nothing like something of a fighting game on here, right? So we're going to be needing to use just the basic stuff. So let's get into some Golden Axe. So one of the things I'm really curious, how will it play when it comes to the beat 'em ups? I've been looking into a lot of games and devices. I did notice sometimes you can just have a certain direction that's good enough, but if you're going to be moving around, it's going to be awful. But no, this is not the case over here. Also, the double tapping is no problem. So I think this is actually one of the first time that I actually really enjoy myself playing with these fake devices. And I mean, I've been reviewing a lot of devices, of course, but I mean, particularly when it comes to these ad-game Firecore crazy things. And throughout all of the videos I've been making, I still suck at this game. Yep, and that's a fact. Did I freaking kill the guys? There's the other guy. The game, let's see if this is going to be running on. Okay, so it sounds really slow, but the signal output is definitely like different. Let's switch to different mode. There we go. And now it starts actually flickering, and that has to do, I'm going to be synchronizing the 50 Hertz to the television and my camera. But the signal output is quite good. Okay, let's try that again. Let's freaking try that again. Let's move the television a little bit, so there we go. I was not paying attention. Okay, that's much better. But so if you're going to be playing some old school games through a television or CT, I think this can be an also very enjoyable situation. So let's get into Sonic 2. I do wonder how the audio will sound. Will it sound a little bit better throughout the TV out cable? Wow. Alright, but before we're going to continue, I just want to say there are quite some different versions out there. And first of all, for example, when I'm grabbing the 6-button edition, we're having the 3-button. This is the version I'm holding here. We're having the 6-button edition. There are quite some different versions of this one. We have the original Ad Games, Chinese versions, and we have the last released, the white edition from Ad Games. Alright, let's play some games. Let's see how they're running. So the sound is not perfect. I think it's due of this speaker that's inside, not with good quality. But I didn't really think of this, but it runs pretty decent. Kick Wolfie, you know, power up, beefcake moment, kick him in the balls. That's the way you would Wicked style. Put him in the face, kick him in the balls. When you're beefcake, you only need to kick or punch once. Yes. The D-pad itself is very nice, and I must say, it plays very nice. That was always quite interesting. So this is actually the 3-button configuration, 20 built-in games, and so far there are only licensed games, because we have seen sometimes these very strange looking ones, like having all kinds of wicked built-in games, and they are pretty bad. Okay, so let's see if I can slide my hand in and just grab it. Come over here. Yeah. And let's open it up and let's do a quick overview. Remove the plastic. So Shinobi 3, but I realized playing throughout these games, that is one of the fun things if you're going to be buying, let's say, this for a couple of freaking $. It's just absolutely a fun experience to revisit and also experience new games, because this is one of those games that I actually discovered by playing through these freaking cool games or game systems. You know, it's interesting to see so far how good it actually, how fun it is. Oh yeah, slice and dice. But there is no quick load, quick save menu. We're kind of used to now with the Chinese products. So we're kind of, actually like limited to that when it comes to the software. So, well, let's get into a couple of games and let's see what's going on over here. Let's see how it sounds through a CRT. Oh crap, wrong button. Let's lower the brightness. Well, so far it's like a 100% accurate, but that sounds kind of weird, but... Kick him in the balls and punch him in the face. That's how it is. Or actually, when you're going to be kicking him in the balls, it doesn't have any, like they had left, but you're getting the point. But so far, it seems to be working just fine when it comes to that. But you know, the other thing I wanted to do is switching to an LCD display, how that's going to be looking. On these CRTs, you can see that the overall, let's say, audio quality, it's not like the best, but also the visual part, it's quite okay. Oh. But this soundtrack I do really like. So moving on to the LCD display with a simple reason, oh man, like I couldn't live with the fact that this thing has like this black and white screen and I have no other CRT by hand. More about that later on. The device itself has no capable option of adding, let's say, original cartridges. So yeah, if you want to play original cartridges, or like these weird homebrew things, yeah, you're out of luck because it doesn't have any, let's say, support. There is no external, let's say, adapter you can plug into this. Nope, as what you see is what you're getting. So what it's kind of cool, we have the option for adding an SD card. That is something we can actually do. So plugging it in, adding new games. So volume control, we're having an AV out. So at the bottom we have the on and off switch and a headphone jack out. So they do have like a very interesting configuration of the handheld. So this is a very small handheld, not like the best form factor. The D-pad is an interesting construction, so just a regular D-pad, but the way how this thing looks, it is quite okay. Menu button, select and start our micro switch, and the A, B, C, X, Y, and Z are up front, like 6-button configuration. It's not similar to the original controllers, it's slightly different. Of course, the buttons are smaller, but let's turn it on and let's see what it is when it comes to the device itself. So the display, can we say I think it's an IPS panel. It's not bad at all, I can tell you that. Just wanted to see what happens if you're going to be messing with it. It's quite sensitive, so you need to get used to it. One of the things I needed to get used beside the D-pad is that's really sensitive is also the tiny buttons. But if you can find one of these devices for not a lot of money, I think it can be a lot of fun playing these games. So let's move on to some other cool ones. So this is kind of interesting. We do have the full library of the trilogy of the Golden Axe. Number 3 is most of the time not available on most at game system or other devices. So I think it's pretty cool. So the Golden Axe number 3 is actually one of those games I never played that much, or at least like... I think it's the first Golden Axe game I'm not going to get my ass kicked. So the gameplay of this thing is completely different. So why this thing is so sensitive, I think it's very nice for playing some beat 'em ups. Oh man, I can tell you this game is so much more forgivable than the other ones. But yeah, so the collection itself, it's absolutely great. And out of the box, this thing does have a lot of cool games to it. And of course, my favorite one, Mortal Kombat series. So for me, my favorite ones are still Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. So at this point where this thing doesn't have like the best display ever, but I must say that the display is absolutely enjoyable. And I think this is one of those, let's say, last generation of, let's say, handhelds they released that had like an okay display. I think the first generation had like most of the time horrible displays. Let's see how the buttons have configured. Yep, the middle ones are for just blocking, so that's right. Oof, I need to get used to the D-pad for also fighting games. Let's see if I can freeze the guy from the other side. Oh yeah, it's more me and handicap, okay. Now you can see like the LED is over there flicking because it's running out of battery. So I don't know how the capacity is of the battery. I've been charging it for, I think, an hour or so. But one thing I do wonder, so let's pause this thing and let's get myself an AV cable and just see if this thing is even compatible with an old school monitor. Or, yeah, let's see what I have laying around. For once I want to go full retro mode and yep, using this freaking device. But let's see, so plugging in and doesn't do anything. So let's turn it on and off. And let's see if it's going to be booting into the TV out. Or does it still only use this? Hello? No, it doesn't recognize the cable somehow. Yeah, it's AV out. It is maybe possible that my cable is not compatible with this, but there is also no extra menu that we can actually get into to activate it. That's so strange, because I can actually hear it from the television. So that has something to do with my cable, because the cable itself is actually going to be... Okay, no, I didn't have a brain for it. Okay, that's a little bit unfortunate. And then we're having the Sega Nomad clones. Yeah, we have all kinds of, let's say, devices I've picked up. And I can tell you that it was kind of interesting when it comes to that. So for example, we're having over here a version that has all kinds of cool stuff, including a built-in game, but most of them are like really bad. Has even an HDMI output, so these things can be used for original cartridges, but can also play through the HDMI. So we have this retro version of Retrobit. This was let's put it this way, nowadays this is not something I would recommend. It's more like a fun novelty if you can pick it up for a couple of dollars. Or having over here the 6-bit Pocket Mega Drive. There was another cool one, and I think this thing was region locked, but this had like a very nice, let's say, overall display, and the D-pad was not even that bad. And overall, having this way overpriced piece of, when I say crap, because it comes with an IPS and HD, and yep, we have an HDMI out, and yeah, the 720p output and original cartridges. And it was a little bit strange on the packaging. It said different, let's say, aspect ratio, but that couldn't really find it. We can connect 2 controllers, so we can use this like an HDMI hybrid device. So, but it's like the version that we can actually play cartridges. We're missing out. Think about, let's say, the aspect ratio and all the other craziness. What I love about these things is that we can actually use original games. Do you have like a small collection you want to start collecting? This can be a very interesting way to play. So it does come most of the time with a built-in battery. And what I think is very convenient, that these 1800-650 batteries can be upgraded to maybe a little bit bigger one, but also you can find them, replace them if they are having any issues. I think it's a very positive thing about it. Playing original games, and of course have the option to just experience the old school days. On-off switch over here, input for the micro USB for charging, then we're having the HDMI and the AV out, so this thing can actually do both of them. And at the bottom we're finding all kinds of cool stuff. Here you can have a very nice overview of, let's say, the options. So volume control, headphone jack out, controller port 1 and 2, and we do have the option to switch for the, I think for the normal controls at the front, and having the option for both of the joysticks. So we're having the aspect ratio over here, and over here we do have ourselves like the O and the J, meaning that we have 2 different regions. So I do wonder if you can actually play also PAL on this. The downside is that we're only having a very tiny speaker, no stereo sound. So turning it on, you can see over here the LED turning on. So booting up, no, it doesn't do anything. And the reason I wanted to test this, because normally we have some of these, let's say, plug-and-play devices come with built-in games. So reset, mode button, start, and the 6-button configuration. However, the 6-button, you can actually see that they're like quite different than the original controller. They're like feeling okay, a little bit too tiny if you ask me. And then of course the D-pad. The D-pad is not a floating D-pad that we have seen with, let's say, devices like Embernic Arc or the original controllers. So it does have like a nice travel to it, a little bit of too much resistance, and have like a very cheap clicky feel. So when it comes to controls itself, not like really surprised. The racing game, the main problem is that this thing is actually just in a different region. So let's put it on Japan. Sometimes it does work when it comes to, let's say, in different region, but no, that doesn't do anything at all. That's a little bit of a downside. Oh. So pulling out original games, that goes quite okay. So let's plug in a game itself. So I do have the idea that the PCBs of the fake ones or like multi-cards are thicker than normal, and you can just feel it, like squeezing them in is okay. Alright, so let's move on to the volume test. Volume test is okay. I'm guessing I need to switch for different controls, as you can see over there. I'm going to be moving this freaking light out of the way. But so far everything seems to be working fine. So you can actually test it over here, Japan NTSC. So I'm guessing this thing doesn't support any PAL at all. So let's switch and let's reset and let's see if there's going to be indication over here. Yep, US NTSC. So we're only having US or NTSC overall support. There are no PAL game support at all. Okay, moving on to the games. So it has been set to the US version. Let's see if we're going to be having a problem. Not at all. So when it comes for playing games, the sound is not like it should be. But also when you're looking at the front, this is just a piece of plastic. So this is not like superb high quality. I would expect like at least a very nice, thick, let's say piece of plastic when you're going to be paying that amount of money. The audio is off when it comes to that. The clicky cheap feel of the D-pad is such an annoying thing. Also moving around is not going to be a very pleasant experience. So the feel of the D-pad, but also when you're going to be looking into the inputs, this is not going to be the best game for playing these kinds of titles. Well, yeah, it's absolutely great to see that we can actually play, let's say, the multi-game cartridges. So PAL is out of the question. Man, getting this out is absolutely a freaking nightmare. Switching to the Flashcard, I think if you can combine this is just a really cool, let's say, way to play. So what you're getting is actually having a $15 Flashcard. So pressing start, let's boot it up like that. And this way we can actually just play our games fairly easy. I just press start, so I'm just loading up, let's say, the cartridge loaded up game. But if you're going to be checking it out, let's say you want to just see, well, hey, I want to like reflash a game, it will take up some time. I did a separate video about the Mega Drive Flash Master. It's a very cheap flash card. So we do have the Sega Nomad, and I really want to have one as making this video. The unfortunate part is that I didn't get, and I got some opportunities, let's put it that way, but most of them are like super expensive, over like $500. So, but that's not for everyone. If you just want to enjoy yourself some games, this can be a very cool way to play. I think this is just an interesting concept where we have original connections on the bottom. We can use this thing as a game system, like a game plug-and-play Sega Genesis device. But what is even cool, that we have even an HDMI output. So this thing utilizes everything that we're going to be needing for having a lot of fun. So turning it on, it will give you the crappy games. Yep, the 180 in 1, or 18 in 1, I need to say. So one of the things is a little bit of a downside is the overall quality of the display. They're not using IPS panels in these, and they are like made many years ago, before, like say, the craziness when it comes to playing all of these, let's say, embryonic devices. So I'm guessing this is just an older way to play. So at the bottom we're finding the region switches, so that's kind of cool that we even can do that. We have the option for Joy-Con in and out, so we can disable and enable the ports. Audio wise, for this tiny speaker at the back, it sounds quite good. So this is from the company called the Firecore, and yeah, this is a kind of weird name to pronounce. I think I'm going to be pronouncing completely wrong when it comes to that. Charging it is going to be in 5V 1 adapter minimum. The model number is HG943, and plugging it in is going to be the micro USB over here. So let's give this thing some light. So we're having the Z and the Y button on top, and what it is kind of cool, if you're going to be holding this thing, oh please shut up. If you're going to be holding this thing, it's quite comfortable. It's a very nice format, and the D-pad feels nice. We do have an A and B, X and Y buttons over here, or X and Y. Sorry, I mean the A, B, C, X buttons over here, and the Y, Z are on top. So if you're going to be playing, I think this is a very nice configuration, where the original Sega Nomad has the 6-button configuration. I think this is not a bad deal at all. So when it comes to configuration of the device, so we do have an AV out, so that's kind of cool if you want to go full retro mode on a CRT, for example. Start, select, reset. So let's see what we have inside of the packages. So we even comes with a controller. The controller quality is mwah, it's okay. So yeah, what I mean why is say is that like the D-pad is the floating D-pad situation, but the ABXY button and everything, it's like a really cheap feel. It's not the quality that you really want to have, so they will work onto AAA batteries. But yeah, it's kind of cool that they're wireless and they come with the system. So we have like this plug and play situation. So let's see, we're having the manual itself explaining the built-in shitty games, because that's actually what it is. Everything comes included in HDMI cable. Then we're having the micro USB cable, and yeah, there is no power supply, but that's not going to be a deal because yeah, we have like all kinds of 5-volt charges. It's going to be only 1 amp, so that's going to be enough for charging it. But when it comes to the battery, let's open the compartment, and you can see this is just a normal battery. I mean, this is the 800 650 battery, so you can put in a bigger one if you want to. So this is 2000 milliamp. I'm just going to be honest, I've been testing it out. I cannot really say how much battery life you're actually going to be getting with this particular one. I've been looking into the manual, but so far I couldn't find any information. I've been testing this thing for a couple of hours, so it'll give you an amazing, say, overall, let's say, game time. I think the biggest positive thing is that you can just do this, let's say, plug and play situation if you want to use an external source, just 5-volt. So this is going to be so much more convenient to actually play than using an old school Sega Nomad. However, let's plug in some games and let's see how compatible it is with games itself. Okay, so one thing is for sure, that the region seems to be working just fine. So let's give this thing a reset, or at least not enough. So let's see if we can switch to the different region that we're not getting the message. I'm just randomly sliding these freaking things. Let's go to the, well, let's slide it all the way to the right, and let's see if I can even manage to get this thing in the right region. So it's going to be booting up. Oh man, it's an empty. Let's slide it there, eh? Okay, shut up. And yeah, wiggling, that's going to be happening. We're going to be wiggling it way too much. So yeah, this is absolutely a freaking nightmare when it comes to playing the right games. Okay, can we finally like getting the right configuration? Yeah, there we go. So we need to put it in the N and the O. There was some dust on there, but seems to be booting up and working just fine. Like always, the audio is messed up, and that is a little bit of a downside. So let's get into the game. Let's listen to the sound effects and everything. Okay, so it's quite difficult to record because I'm going to be looking through the camera display, because the overall, let's say, quality of the display is really bad. The D-pad is quite comfortable when it comes to that. So when it comes to playing on this device, I can say that it is really enjoyable. If they like slap an IPS panel in here, this one would be a very fun way to play. It also indicates how much battery it'll have, and that is not much. Yeah, I didn't charge it up actually before making the video. But let's shut it down and let's see, let's putting in different games. Because let's start off with some other craziness like the multi-cartridge configuration. And let's see if this is going to be working at all. No, it's not going to be working. So that is one of the biggest problems with these weird clone devices. Also pulling out the games is like a freaking nightmare. Another game I just wanted to see is this Mortal Kombat game, because this is a different configuration with a massive storage for the cartridge itself. And let's see if it's going to be booting through there. Yep, we do have. So that is absolutely awesome. We can play the Ultimate Mortal Kombat trilogy on here. So when actually playing, I must say that when it comes to the volume of the thing, it's okay when it comes to that. It's quite loud, or at least like it's clear, but I wish it was louder and had like 2 speakers. That would be so much better. Here's a in, and everything seems to be working fine, but let's get into, let's say, the compatibility, because that is a little bit of a problem when it comes to these devices. Another thing I wanted to check out how it is when it comes to the Mega EverDrive Pro. Can we also play those Mega CD games? So let's start off with just a multi-card. Just randomly pick something. Man, these games putting them in. Oh man, this is going to be an absolutely issue. Okay, give me a second. And everything falls apart again. Yep, okay, fine. Okay, so let's take a close look at the menu itself and everything of the multi-card. I do have this flickering going on, that's mostly to do, that has to do with the battery compartment. But how is with the audio? It's okay, it's quite okay, let's put it at. So you can see this is the region which has actually been set on. It's the Japan and the SC version, and I don't think I can even, let's say, switch it to something else. So we're stuck with one single region. So there's a little bit of a downside when it comes to this particular model, but doesn't need to be a big of a deal. But let's boot it up. So the audio is going to be sounding messed up, absolutely. But let's get into some gaming over here. So the screen itself is tiny, it's absolutely tiny, but it is quite nice when it comes to the quality. So navigation is quite okay. I think that has to do with the feel. I can really enjoy this, because with the simple reason, because this thing has a nice display, audio is okay. And we can actually use the D-pad without a lot of problems. So when it comes to playing games, and multi-game seems to be supported, so that's kind of cool when it comes to that. So let's move on to something else. Moving on to the Mortal Kombat Trilogy game, but this one doesn't seem to be booting up. And I've noticed this before with some other clone devices. Yeah, there's like going to be a hit or miss also when it comes to the consoles itself. So man, these pins are really tight, to the point, particularly when you're going to be having some, let's say, aftermarket stuff. But the Flashcard seems to be booting up, so that's absolutely awesome. Let's press start. Wasn't like Outrun loaded up into this? Yep. And we're using actually a different region. But when it comes for playing, that seems to be working all fine. So it's kind of cool that we can just implement the Flashcard, like a $15 Flashcard in this way, and we can just actually play. So that's kind of cool when it comes to that. So having multi-cards and having also flashcards that can even be used in this is absolutely a very cool add-on. What is kind of funny, when adding the Mega EverDrive Pro to this, it went so much more smoothly. So the PCB thickness is completely different. But what is kind of interesting too is like, well, we have like the cheap flashcard had the possibility to actually play. But somehow when it comes to this flashcard, like the original one, clicks in perfectly, but doesn't do anything. Okay, so that is interesting that we even have limitation when it comes to flashcards. So 2.8-inch color LCD display, and yep, it comes also with a very nice looking package. And yeah, and 2.8-inch, that is not a big overall, let's say LCD display. And yeah, is this thing still worth picking up? I've paid around like 16-ish euro for it, and that was quite expensive, but still, come on, the purpose review, I just needed to check it out. So my first impression of the device, I quickly later tested it out, and yeah, it's a very compact device, so that's very positive. And the D-pad is also a very interesting one, because this feels so strange. Well, I must say it fits in very nicely. You can pull them out fairly easy. This is the original game. Let's check out if you're going to be putting it in. Oh, it clicks in very nicely. And yeah, that's not bad at all. I'm very surprised, because this is one of those common problems we have seen with, let's say, these bootleg Sega things that you can pick up from AliExpress or other companies. Okay, so at this point I'm just going to be using a power bank. Let's check out if we're going to be shutting down the lights, or a couple of them in the studio. So it seems to be that it is charging or some kind, doesn't matter. We have an external battery this way. Make it kind of a portable situation going on. The only unfortunate thing is when you're looking at the display itself, there are some markings, and I don't know if the camera is going to be picking this up. So the display is not in perfect condition, but that is something we can expect of after all of those years. But there are a lot of, let's say, built-in games. They also use the Firecore, and the Firecore has been seen with, let's say, the game system that we've tested out, and a lot of, let's say, different ones. But also when I look, when this thing is not an IPS panel, the overall quality of the display is quite decent. But we're having so much weird stuff, dual magic, yep, and all kinds of built-in weird shenanigans. That audio. I must say, I give them some kudos, because it goes quite loud. That's something you don't see very often with these things. And pressing the menu button will reset the system itself. And here we're having all kinds of different games. So let's choose that. Yeah, that's snowboarding. Is it a snowboarding game? Okay, the music is kind of funny. Different kind of players, just changing the colors. Okay. Let's see what we can do. Oh boy, this looks really bad. What is going on this thing? Look at this. Okay, there we go. There we go. No, completely messed it up. Messed it up. I completely messed up this game. Yep, I finally hit it. What? U-turn? Wait, why? Oh boy, this is really bad. So let's get into the freaking like games itself, because this is horrible. Let's see, which game shall we pick? I think I'm going to be starting off with the Street Fighter game. Okay, the first thing I've noticed when putting in the Street Fighter game, it didn't want to boot up at all. Now we can just see how the display has some markings, but that's actually what's going to be happening. It's just giving me a red screen. I've been switching with the switch over here to see if this is going to be helping out, but nope, this thing is not compatible with Street Fighter. I did clean it, it's no weird, but later on I just wanted to see if we can even combine it. So let's put in Sonic the Hedgehog. Let's boot up this thing. Let's see if the switch does anything. There we go. Let's listen to the music itself. Okay, it sounds completely messed up. Let's give this thing a reboot. Let's see if it's going to be turbo mode. So this switch doesn't do anything. Oh man, this is really bad. Woohoo! Turbo mode. Sonic on turbo mode. Oh man. Yeah, that's completely messed up. That's one thing to be sure. But let's see if we can even, let's say, play some games and how does it control. So far, the sound effects of the rings are correct, but it sounds all so messed up. For Sonic we can actually play this, so that's not a problem. Okay, let's get into the bonus stage. That's one of those better tests, because I have that three-dimensional thing going on. It's going to be like looking great, so it seems to be working fine. I can actually play the bonus stage. The D-pad is not bad for this kind of game. Oh, bad at audio. Oh, this is absolutely horrible. But let's see what happens if you're going to be booting up the dual cartridge situation. So this first boot is going to be Sonic and Knuckles. You can just see it works fine. So let's open it up. Let's plug this bad boy in. And let's check out what happens over here. So boot up the Sega. But it doesn't show the second game. And I've been cleaning this up, but it doesn't help. This is just not working at all. So that is one of the things that we have with these older devices, but also with newer devices from China, that we don't have the compatibility of having these games. So let's plug in the next game and let's check out what happens now. Okay, so what I've noticed when it comes to this particular game, the audio speed is correct now. So the switch itself doesn't do anything whatsoever, so let's get into it. Today is one of those days that we're going to be finding very interesting but weird products on AliExpress. And this is one of those things. So I always wanted to have actually a fully modded IPS Sega Nomad. And can tell you these things are freaking expensive. However, on AliExpress you can now find one for not a lot of money in the end, and this is what we're getting. It's a completely 3D printed Sega Nomad system, and it did come with all kinds of very cool functionalities. So I must say that when you're going to be looking at the device, where the thing is actually just 3D printed, I must say that I'm surprised how it actually looks. So this is also called the Yuha, is it something like it called? The Genesis Nomad, or in other words the XYM, this 6800. So this thing is going to be using a 5V for charging. It also comes with the charger itself, but this is actually interesting. So the reason why, because the overall construction, it's surprisingly not bad. Of course, this is nothing to be compared with an original Sega Nomad, but the question remains today, will this be one of those interesting things to pick up if you just want to have a Nomad for not a lot of money? So even the D-pad itself is 3D printed. And the same goes actually for the buttons over here. So it is actually cool that this thing comes also with an AV out. And yup, we can play original cartridges, and the overall construction is pretty decent. Only sometimes I do notice that the dust cover will get stuck, or just because it's new. Over here we're finding the input for the power supply and the on-off switch. And at the bottom we're going to be having actually a jack out and a controller port. So yeah, this thing has a controller port, so we can actually utilize this thing just like in the retro Sega gaming system. So first of all, if you're going to be holding this thing in your hand, of course it doesn't feel like a really authentic, let's say, Sega product. But first of all, the D-pad itself does have like a very nice feel, and it's the same floating construction that we have with the D-pads. However, the ABXY button, I'm really surprised how well and how smooth it feels. And I must say the overall construction, I was really flabbergasted. If they're going to be switching to, I think it's called injection molding, I think they can even make a really decent product. But let's remove the screen protector because it actually shows over here some weird number. And let's power it on, because if you're going to be powered on, you can see waving an LED turning on. There are no built-in games that we have seen before with some of those clone systems, but that's it. But there's a lot of cool functionalities you can do with it. But let's first plug in a game. We're just going to be testing out a couple of games like the Mortal Kombat 2 custom game, the Mortal Kombat or the Ultimate Mortal Kombat Trilogy game. I want to use the Mega EverDrive Pro and this pretty cool cartridge, because this thing has a massive library of games and a pretty good overall menu. So let's see if this is going to be working on the Nomad over there. The power supply itself is something fancy. I just wanted to showcase what is actually the number, so if you need to order yourself another one, or it's actually got lost, have that a couple of times, then you can check out what kind of power supply you're going to be needing when it comes to the specification itself. But just 5 volt, nothing fancy. So don't use your original one, because that one is actually, I think, 9 volt or 10 volt. But if you're going to be plugging in a game, it slides in quite smoothly. You need to like a little bit pushing it down when it comes to the connection itself. But the overall connection is very short. But let's turn it on. And let's see if we're going to be getting anything going on when it comes to the overall display. And I can tell you that the first thing I really noticed that this display, I think it's not going to be like the best IPS panel, but I must say that this thing is pretty good when it comes to that. But let's give you a little bit up close. The front glass is quite reflective, that's a little bit of a downside, but also the audio. This sounds pretty good. So let's fight. I have no idea. I never play Where You Looking. Oh, there we go. So the display itself is so comparable with more like this first generation LCD displays. So of course it's going to be in such a big improvement if you're going to be looking at the original Sega Nomad. Yeah, seriously, he's doing it. But how does it actually work when it comes to the controls? And I mean not the controls itself like here, no, we're actually like using the device. So if you're going to be using the Mo button over here with the A and the X, we can actually switch to a different audio level. And the overall level is okay, nothing very special. But also if you're going to be adjusting the screen itself, mode button, we can go all the way to up here, and we're having brightness, contrast, colors, tint, the language. If sent to English, you can change out to English here. You can even rotate it if you want to, and reset it. So that's actually how the thing works when it comes to the audio levels, but also when it comes to setting up the display itself. The unfortunate part is with the Mega EverDrive Pro, we don't have the option to actually use it. So this thing seems to be limited. So also another game I just wanted to check out is the Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Ultimate Trilogy. That's a massive game. And you know, this is one of those games and many other ones that are quite difficult to overall play on this Sega Nomad thing. But you can see that it struggles big time. So what I can actually do is pull it out, and man, with a cartridge like this, it's going to be really tight. Blow this sucker, put it back in, squeeze it freaking back in, double check it again. But this is actually what happens. So yeah. Nothing is going to be happening anytime soon. But the ultimate combination, it's going to be actually this particular cartridge, this multi-game card with the Sega Nomad. So why do I call this actually ultimate? It's because you have a lot of different games to play, and this works quite well. So with this particular one, you're going to be having 480 games. We don't need actually an EverDrive. And again, we can make a separate video for testing more and more cartridges because there are so many freaking options. But yeah, when it comes to this, there is so much you can just play. And the combination of this cartridge and this Sega Nomad, you're going to be having absolutely a blast to the past. But somehow it does have problems when it comes to some games. I find it absolutely fascinating. So because if you're going to be booting up some other games, love that it actually remembers. Let's go Sonic and Knuckles. You can actually, that does boot up. So what's the difference? I have no idea. Maybe it's actually the file that we're using on the multi-card. We do have some glitches over there at the top. But it runs pretty bad. Whew. But this is all I have to do with a simple reason, because this freaking multi-card uses different kind of, I'm not saying just games itself. But let's go with the Street of Rage 2 game. The overall experience of playing, this is not of course to be compared with an original Sega product. I mean, when it comes to the original Nomad of course. But yeah, it's not that bad. Also going for this audio. If you're looking at the price you're actually paying for this, yeah, it's not bad at all. But when it comes to region, maybe you can actually switch regions, but what I understand of, I've been looking into the page itself, couldn't find anything regarding the overall region itself. So maximum volume, yeah, it's not bad. A great game to actually test the high. Ching ching, ching ching. So when it comes to playing games, you need to go through the list itself to see if you can find games that have problems. But let's see what's going on. Let's go, for example, with Smash TV. I'm just randomly picking stuff to see what's going on. Of course, having an EverDrive that can work with this, that would make everything so much easier. Okay, let's see, we're having... Oh, we can only actually do that. No, it only supports like 3 buttons. Oh, that's a little bit of a bummer. Absolutely a big bummer. Kind of cool that they implemented Sonic 3 and Knuckles, because this is one of the games you'd never see on these freaking multi-game cards. Sounds like the weird thing going on, but... I actually wanted to test out the 6-button layout, and I think the Super Street Fighter 2 is actually one of the games that you can actually use it for. Yeah, okay, so that seems to be working fine. How about playing fighting games? I'm surprised how well this works. Also the fireball. And oh man, there are many devices out there. However, I still want to have an original Sega Nomad because I don't feel like, say, this is, let's say one of these devices can replace it. You know, a Sega Nomad with IPS panel will cost me around, like, say, $500-ish nowadays, maybe more, because these things are rare. And with an IPS panel, yeah, it's just a very expensive upgrade. But if you're going to be looking at what is actually my favorite way to play when it comes to all these clone devices, I think for just emulation. You know, this thing, has just a special heart in my place when it comes to the Ionic RG Arc S, because this is such a cool device, but its emulation can play freaking original games. Yeah, and if you're going to be playing original games, yeah, where this thing was kind of my favorite when it comes to the 16-bit Pocket Mega Drive, but it was only locked to the Japan region. So for the original cartridges, there were not a lot of, say, let's say, fun products out there, or one that say like this is the perfect one, because there was no perfect one when it comes to playing. But this white edition, if you can pick this, let's say, Mega Drive white colored version, that is absolutely an awesome one if you're going to be updating it too. But that's it. There are many different ways to play, but if you just want to play portable, Sega Nomad is maybe the best way to play. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and it will be great to see you in the next video.